Nancy, last week we talked about accepting pain. Instead, we ended with, I can't share this, I got this. And what we talked about is that we need to share this. It's coming to terms emotionally what you experienced, and that we can get in situations that are very painful, and that we need to feel that, and we need to experience that. Today we're going to talk about what is personal accountability and moving forward, and how you can't keep from experiencing pain in life. However, there is accountability that you can make choices, a personal accountability of not giving up who you are or your values. That makes sense?
Expand on that.
Sometimes as we go through the pain, we come to terms of feeling. The biggest question you ask yourself, at least for me, is how did I get there? What was my responsibility in that? How did I get here? And so when you go through abuse, what is my responsibility in that moving forward? What is my...
Well, it's really when you go through abuse, the question comes, how can I get out of this?
Yes.
So...
And how do I don't repeat it again?
Right. But the first step is to... Well... Yeah. Exactly what you said. We really talked about last week, really embracing it and giving yourself the permission to confess it, that this is what has happened.
Yes.
Because you speak it, you bring it to life, you bring it to the forefront. Now, here it is. It's real. So then the next question is going to be, how can I get myself out of this? Because abuse is this huge web that we get, like we're caught in it and we can't seem to break free. Reason why we can't seem to break free is because we're waiting for our abuser to apologize, or we're waiting for our abuser to tell us we're okay. We're waiting for our abuser to make that step to let us out of our little prison. That's what we're waiting on. That's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. So how we can move ourselves out of this is exactly, we ask ourselves the question, what is here? And how did I get here? We get here because, again, nobody deserves to be abused. Mm-hmm. Nobody asked to be abused. So we get here, and it can be from different decisions that we all have within ourselves a mechanism where if we are in danger, we can sense that danger. But if we keep silencing that mechanism because there's some other greater need that happens, we're going to eventually lose that mechanism. That's what gets us here. We give our power away. We give our power. And again, going back to what I talked about, we are expecting our abuser to tell us sorry. We are expecting our abuser to tell us, this is wrong and I'm going to change. We can't change anyone except for ourselves. So every day that we continue to stay in this triangle waiting for the abuser to come through for us is every day we continue to give to them and we don't have our own power. How we get out of this is by ourselves. We look at ourselves. And that's where personal accountability comes in. I'm holding myself accountable.
And one of the ways I learned to do that is a question you ask yourself, how did I violate myself? Mm-hmm. And exactly what you said earlier, where you're talking about the violation that happened.
Yes.
So then you speak to yourself and said, how did I violate myself? What did I give? What exactly you say? What authority did I give up? Mm-hmm. Where did that start? And taking personal responsibility for that.
Exactly.
And for me, there also where I got in that situation, we always talk about it because in some ways there's a violation to yourself, but also there's a part of what we call the God complex. And again, go ahead. We want to speak on that a little bit, Nancy.
No, go ahead.
And the God complex, again, it goes back to where we're not seeing it, goes, I got this, or I can, and then you're in it, and then I can fix this.
I'm going to fix the person. I'm going to fix my abuser.
Yes.
So
or I'm going to fix the organization.
Right, exactly. But that would basically be where you're right. That's where the God complex comes in, is that I'm going to shake myself free from this because I'm going to fix my abuser. No, you're not.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
And that would be also wanting to apologize and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But the real personal accountability is the beginning, and that's where I think it was easy for me. First of all, the first thing is it didn't happen, didn't feel the pain. Mm-hmm. Second of all, I can fix whatever comes in my life.
Right.
I am that invincible, so to speak.
No one's going to penetrate you. It really comes to the fact that you believe that you have this great armor on, and that no one's going to protect. No one's going to break free or break through those armors. Mm-hmm. When you continue to tell yourself that, that's actually a sign that you don't have thick armors, because someone's already broken through them. Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't allow you, when that sneaks in ahead, that doesn't allow you to ask the question where I violated myself. Does that make sense?
Expand on that.
In other words, because the pathway out is, first of all, asking yourself the question, where did I violate myself? Where did I drop certain boundaries, and what were those? If I'm superior and I think I'm good, I didn't violate myself. Matter of fact, they need to change. And
well, it really comes to realizing that you have been violated would be the first step.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, what we talked about last podcast.
And that was last week.
Yeah. And so when you have your God complex, it's going to continue to say you're not violated, you're not abused. You're going to continue to deny it. Because there's no way. You are stronger than that. As long as you do that, you're going to continue to stay in here. So the first step out is to admit that you have been violated. Then you go to the fact of, how have I allowed myself to be violated?
Right. And that's when then it starts becoming personal accountability, where you start looking at, okay, this is what I let down, or this is where I didn't matter, or these are values that I betrayed my own personal values, my own personal beliefs that were dear to me. I let them go. I compromised them, whatever those are.
And it really starts by basically when you give away your own accountability. What do I mean by that? Okay, when I'm being very self-aware of who I am, I hold myself accountable. But when I start giving my accountability away is when I become vulnerable to other people. That's when they start speaking into me on a morally way, because again, I'm not holding myself accountable, so I'm giving them that. So that's where they're going to start telling you, okay, you speak too loud. Mm-hmm. You need to quiet down. That is basically where those things start coming. So it's really starting to take your own accountability back and saying, I'm going to start holding myself accountable to live out my own moral values. But I also have to realize, I also have to be honest with myself and ask myself, what are my moral values? Because when you give your accountability away to others, they define your moral values. Mm-hmm. And so you start losing pieces of you because they're the ones holding you accountable. Once you start holding yourself accountable, they don't have that kind of power anymore.
Yeah, because it's easy to go, again, personal accountability versus victim. Mm-hmm. Being a victim.
Okay, what do you mean it's easy to do personal accountability versus being a victim?
I said it's easy to do the victim mentality.
Oh, I must misunderstood what you're saying.
It's good you clarify that. It's easy to do the victim mentality and blame them. Then look at yourself and say, I violated my own values. You stop pointing the finger. And
it's not necessarily the blame game. That's exactly what you're talking about. When you get into the victim, of it, you're a victim of your circumstance. You continue to play the blame game. Mm-hmm. Personal accountability is I'm going to stop playing the blame game, and I'm going to say, this is where I'm at. This is not where I'm going to stay, and how am I going to get myself out of here? So there's no more blame game. Again, we want to play if we play the blame game, guilt comes in, shame comes in, and all that stays right with us and keeps us right where we want to be. So we're going to stop with the blame game. And we're going to look, that's personal accountability. Is I'm not going to blame. I'm going to stop with the blame game. I'm not going to look what they did. I'm going to look what I did, because I can't change them, but I can change myself.
And give a illustration. We were talking today, and I think you come up with a really good illustration. So I'm going to step back and let you share your illustration.
So if I'm betrayed, instead of focusing on getting ahead of the story, standing up and saying that I allowed myself to be betrayed. It doesn't matter about the other person. It's about what I did. And repenting from that and saying, this is what I did, and because of this, I allowed myself to be betrayed, which gives my voice. It gives my voice because I'm owning that, but it also takes away the power.
You just said something, repenting, but yet at the same time, that doesn't help me understand that, because you just got violated. Now you're repenting for being violated.
I am, because
help me understand that.
Okay, when if I didn't ask to be betrayed.
No.
But
now you're going to repent for being
I'm going
something
to repent
that does not make any sense.
To myself for allowing myself to be violated because I wasn't respecting myself. In this situation, in a relationship, when you're in a relationship, a healthy relationship is both of you respect each other, right? But if I became betrayed, it was simply because I wasn't respecting myself. I didn't have respect for myself. And I allowed myself to be walked over. I allowed myself to trust when I shouldn't have trusted. So I am going to apologize to myself. That's where the repenting comes in. I'm going to apologize to myself for allowing that. And then I'm going to say, okay, where did I disrespect myself? Where did I say, I don't matter? It goes back to saying, I matter. I am worthy and I matter. And so taking that back, I'm taking my power back. And I can also, forgiveness is not for the other person. Forgiveness is for ourselves. But we really have to work on forgiving ourselves. It's easier to forgive other people than it is to forgive ourselves because we live with ourselves on a daily basis. I mean, I can't leave myself behind, right? So I have to repent to myself because I allowed things to happen that I became betrayed. And it's not, again, did I ask to be betrayed? No. Am I at fault of being betrayed? No. This is called responsibility. This is called a personal accountability. So I'm going to hold myself accountable, but I'm going to look at the relationship and say, what can I learn from this? And on the other hand, I'm taking away that person who betrayed me, I'm taking away their power. Because every day that I hold on to the hurt and the pain of their betrayal is every day they rob me of my life.
And this reason why I asked.
And going back to what I talked about earlier, I'm waiting for this person to come back and tell me that I'm sorry, I betrayed you. Chances are that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I am responsible for that. I am accountable to myself for that. So that is what I talk about, taking personal responsibility, personal accountability, and taking back their power. Because I am going to, and forgiveness is a process. I would agree with that. But it starts with yourself. Forgive yourself.
And the reason why I asked you that, because that's the pathway you took me through after I recognized the steps I went through is, first of all, recognize the validation. I don't have this. This one here, you just don't, I was following this pathway. It didn't make any sense to me.
No.
Because as a person, I wanted to get back. I wanted to take them out. Instead, I'm taking myself out. This is what threw me off here when you were leading me this path. I trusted it, but it didn't make sense to me because I believe I need to tell them, I need to take them out tell the world
They
what they
need to
did.
pay.
They need to pay.
Yeah. And the thing is, they're not going to. And here's the thing, okay? When you get up, and so many different times as people who have been victims of other people, when they get up and they talk about the betrayal that happened to them, nobody really cares. Nobody really cares or gives. You may get a listening ear, but after a while, because it doesn't go away overnight, and so after a while, nobody cares, and
You become numb to it.
They become numb to
people
it,
become numb
or
to
they
it.
look at you and say, "Suck it up and get back to work."
Oh yeah, and that's usually what it is.
And the truth of it is, it's because you're a voice in the dark and you're crying out and no one is listening. No one is hearing you. Because again, you got violated and nobody cares. These are feelings. Nobody cares. You got violated, and importantly,
and then what happens, the louder you want to speak.
the louder you want to scream and yell, but more importantly,
And then
what you see
now they're not
is
really
you look
listening.
across the table and you see your abuser prospering. You see your abuser living this glorious life, and they're free. In your perspective, in your eyes, they're free. They're not carrying this burden. They're not carrying this. But every day that you hold on to it, because again, you want them to come back and say, we want that validation to say you were right. You are violated.
Yeah.
That's what we want them to say. We want them to say, you're right, I violated you. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And so we continue to see them continue to move forward with their life as if nothing happened.
Yeah.
And yet here I am yelling in the dark,
There's
and no one's
justice.
listening. And there's no justice. There's none
There's
whatsoever.
no closure.
And there's no closure. There's none whatsoever. That's because only you can give yourself closure. Only you can. You have to release them. You have to release them. And you have to look at this and say, instead of saying, why is this happening to me? What can I learn from this happening to me?
Wow, that's hard.
It's really, really hard, but it's very freeing. Because when I look at this and say, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? Okay, where did I let myself down? Where did I?
But we're letting them off the hook, Nancy, when we do that.
See, and that's the mentality that we're letting them off the hook. And here's the question: how are you letting them off the hook? Help me understand. Because when you look across the state, they're not on the hook. They're not on the hook. And you can scream as loud as you want to. You can scream as loud as you want to. And again, like I said, some people will give you a listening ear. Some people will be very empathetic and say, my mind, they're there. But after a while, they'll say, get over it. Move on. Let it go. Whatever that means.
But then they don't get justice. Justice doesn't happen. They can continue to do it to the next person.
Exactly. Because you are continuing to hold yourself in that prison. Instead of rising up and saying, I did this to myself. This is what I did to myself. Taking their power totally away. You're going to silence them. You're going to silence them. They're going to be the ones who are now going to go out there because they have to rally their story, right? But if you don't put a story out there, there's no story for them to rally. They can't correct you because it's your story. You own it. Because, again, it's your perspective. It's your experience. You own it. So if you are basically, how they can continue to stay ahead and stay off the hook is by you getting on the story, and they can basically contradict you because they have tremendous amount of power over you because, again, they have your shame, they have your guilt, they have your fear, they have all these. But when you look inside yourself and they don't matter, you don't look at them, they are not there, they're non-existent, but you look at yourself, that is when you can live in freedom. And that is when you silence them. You're no longer a voice in silence. You're no longer screaming in the dark because you have silenced them. You have taken away their voice.
Yeah. But what I've learned in following this path, because we talked earlier too, do you have to have a lot of confidence to do it at this stage of the game? Because I said, if I look back, it takes a tremendous amount of confidence is it confidence it takes to do this, or what does it really take?
First of all, it takes someone walking with you. You can't go this road by yourself. Yes. That's the first thing.
Okay.
And then it takes a tremendous amount of faith.
Yes.
But very, very importantly, it takes...
Especially when you don't have faith in yourself in the beginning of this.
Exactly.
And that's...
Yes, very, very importantly, it takes a tremendous amount of emotional cleansing. That's why you have to have someone walking with you. Yeah. Because, again, how they can get you is by your emotions. And so when you want to sock it to them, you're going to tell them exactly how you feel, which, guess what, just continues to give your power away because they know exactly how you feel. So they know exactly what move to make that's going to continue to take you out of control. Mm-hmm. Where you emotionally cleanse and they have no clue what you're feeling. They have no clue how to get your emotions. They can't get any of that. Takes them out of control. Mm-hmm. Takes them out of control. That's where you have to have someone walking with you so that you can totally emotionally cleanse because you're not going to be free of emotions.
Yes.
But you're not going to want to show them. And it really comes into holding, you said it well, emotional intelligence is really bringing your emotions into submission so that you can get all the information from them and then get the gifts from them, which each of the emotions give you gifts. So it really brings them into submission. And how you do that is by releasing them, allowing yourself to go there. But you go there in a safe place where no one's going to be holding it against you. And you bring it all out to the forefront, and then you can make these decisions where, like I said, these decisions you make are very logic and there is no emotions attached.
Yes.
So they cannot get you, which silence them.
So you don't have to have all that faith in yourself right away.
No.
It's
just basically you're making a choice that you're going to get yourself out. So you're focusing on yourself. So you just go on faith, where you said you have to have confidence. Your confidence comes with you as you have faith. Yeah. Because you continue to overcome this situation and you can rise above it. And again, it's by emotionally cleansing and having someone walk alongside. And really, and it's really exactly what you said. It's really hard to not look at them.
Yeah.
But the truth is, the power doesn't lie within them. It lies within you.
And as you do that, you start rebuilding faith and belief in yourself.
You do. And you actually start rebuilding your life as well, so that you can then become a voice for the next person who is screaming in the dark.
Yes. And there's a tremendous amount of freedom in when you can say, put anything on the billboard. I already looked at it. Mm-hmm. I see it, and I see myself, the good, bad, and ugly.
Exactly.
And I can accept that, and not that you justify the quote bad or the mistakes.
No.
You look at that exactly what you said, so you can grow from it.
Exactly.
So you can change.
Exactly.
And there's a tremendous amount of freedom on that. Mm. And as you continue to do that and look at yourself, you start building the confidence in yourself and in God back again. Because what has been taken from you when you went through all this was the confidence in yourself. You second-guessed yourself.
It was.
You got to a place where you didn't know what was right or wrong.
Exactly what you said. And you looked at the man in the mirror you didn't recognize. So you're taking back. It's really taking back your identity. Is really what it is. You're taking back your identity. And as you take it back, you become more and stronger every day in your identity and also more confident in your identity. And what you talked about earlier, how do I prevent this from happening again? How you prevent it from happening again is being aware. That's why you ask yourself, instead of asking, why is this happening to myself? What can I learn from this? Because if you're constantly asking, why does this happen to myself? You're not learning the lesson that got you here. So you're going to repeat it. It's a thinking, it's a thought process. It's really our thoughts. And so we have the power to change our thoughts. So if we have to continue to look at our thought process of what got us here, and so that we can change our thought process so we don't repeat it. But if we're not aware of the pattern that got us here, we are going to be bound to repeat it again.
Yeah, and I want to give testimony that the pathway you took me to in Orange Rose, it was the road less traveled in so many ways for me. I didn't look like it. But I followed it. but I didn't follow it willingly. So to
No.
speak. Took everything I had.
Let's reframe that. You followed it willingly, but it was not the easiest. It was the hardest thing you ever did in your life.
That's true.
Because you wouldn't be where you're at if you were held captive.
Right. What it was hard to die. I guess the better way to say it was hard to die to that mindset that I have two mindsets I had. I got this.
Right.
And I need to take them out.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It was a very hard road. It was the hardest thing you ever did. But you did it willingly because you knew very clearly what got you to where you were at was not working anymore.
No.
And that mindset that you had, those thoughts that you had, were actually what got you where you're at, got you into that web, into that snare. So now you're going to pull yourself back out. So yes, those thought patterns don't die because oftentimes they come from our childhood on up. So they've been with us for a long time. So for us to actually start thinking differently is really, really hard because as we're continuing to think differently, our old pattern is going to pop its ugly little face up. But we have to be willing to continue to stump those out and say, no, I'm not going to think that way anymore. I'm going to change my thoughts.
And I believe very clearly you can't do this alone.
I just got done saying that.
Yes. I'm talking for myself personally.
Yes, absolutely.
I used to think I can do all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
This you can't do alone.
No.
Because the combination of emotionally cleansing and letting go is because for me the two major things was I got this.
Yes.
And I'm going to take them out. Mm-hmm. And
they're going to pay. And I think we've talked about this before. If you are focusing in your thought processes, they're going to pay. Bitterness comes creeping in, and bitterness is really a poison that you're drinking, expecting them to die.
Yes.
And so each day you drink this poison is another day that you die, but they continue to live.
Yep. And I can give you a lot of examples of where I lost a lot of time in that mindset. But what I can testify is the pathway that you took me down. There's tremendous amount of freedom I never experienced in my life. And I know myself more than I ever have and have a confidence and have the ability to not be paralyzed, but to impact and to actually impact in other people's lives in a real way through all the pain.
Yes.
I wouldn't have been there. I couldn't get there with those two mindsets. There's no way.
Statement.
Is there anything, other closing remarks, Nancy, you have for this podcast?
No, I think we basically covered it.
I want to invite our audience, if you contact Orange Rose Services, you need a coach, or you just need to drop us a line, contact us. James at orangeroseservices.com. Thank you, and have a great week.